Schools are going to close this week until later in July. The Basic Education Minister giving more detail on schools' plan as we go back into lockdown level 4. Minister Angie Motshekga spent the day in the Free State today inspecting school staff vaccination sites. Reporter Slindelo Masikane joins me from Bloemfontein to give us the very latest. Hi there, Slee. Thank you so much for joining us. So update us first, if you will, on where we are with the schools, the teacher and support staff vaccine rollout in the Free State and, of course, countrywide.
Certainly, we know that we are in the second week of that vaccine rollout for the education sector, Sally, and it seems as though that things are running smoothly, and particularly here in the Free State, where we heard from the Health MEC that they plan on having their second batch of vaccines delivered to the province tomorrow. They were actually planning and saying that by the end of today, they would have finished administering all 16,000 doses of their very first batch that they received, and that they're hoping that by this Friday they would have inoculated everyone who has registered or who is planning on walking in to the vaccination centres here in the Free State. And we also heard that so far the target, of course, for the basic education sector is to inoculate over 582,000 staff. That is educators and as well as staff that aren't teaching, and that so far we have around 200,000 vaccinations that have been administered. Let's take a listen.
And I was very happy to hear from both MECs of Health and Education that they say by Friday they will be done. What will be remaining in the remaining days of our program is mop up. And I did say to the MEC that I'm not surprised. When matric results come, they are paid. And so it's one province that works very well, and I'm very happy. I visited the site here. You can see also that there's movement, because during the teaching days, we wanted the process to move quickly so that no school stays here for more than an hour, so that they are able to go back to school. And I can see here the queues are moving quickly.
Yeah, that's really good news, Slee, that almost a good third of those teachers and support staff have already been vaccinated, and hopefully it's only going to ramp up. Of course, the big news, and something parents want all the information on, is the fact that Wednesday is the last school day across the country, private and public schools, that this shutdown, the early winter holidays in effect, is all about trying to contain the spread of this particular variant, which is so highly transmissible. This is the Delta variant that we heard about over the weekend, and that even though schools are not traditionally sites for big infections, any movement, any congregation of anybody is going to spread this very, very transmissible variant. So what did the minister have to say about schools closing and when they're going to reopen and how?
Of course, it's been a matter of great concern, Sally. I think many parents have been quite anxious to find out exactly what the plan is now moving forward following that announcement last night from the President. You would remember some 2 weeks ago, in fact, when the Basic Education Minister had a briefing, she had told the media that time that the department was adopting what she called a differentiated approach, that the education sector wasn't going to close, there wasn't going to be a blanket closure, rather, of schools in the sector, that there was going to be a case-by-case kind of look at it. Every province would determine whether a certain school needs to close because there's an outbreak. But, of course, with this new variant, it seems as though that the opening of schools, or the remaining of schools being open, is certainly a huge risk for not only teachers but learners as well themselves. So we know, of course, that the winter break has now been brought forward. The winter break will now start on Wednesday, the 30th of June. The opening date is what has now been revised as well. The public schools, rather, will now open on the 19th of July. But there's also been a concession that's been made, Sally, for those parents who have schools in different provinces, in boarding school, that they can make arrangements, at least for the rest of this week, to have their kids brought back home, because you would understand that it would be quite difficult to get your child in a matter of 2 days. So the Basic Education Department has said that parents with children outside of the provinces where they reside will have until Friday midday to collect their children. But also the minister saying that she is hoping that this break, this early break, will also help in them achieving that vaccination target within the sector, that there won't be schooling taking place, so then teachers will certainly have the time to go and vaccinate. Let's take a listen.
Learners in public and independent schools and private schools should be released for their winter vacation on Wednesday, the 30th of June. So the 30th is the last teaching day. And that we agreed this morning, because after the president announced, we convened a Council of Educators meeting at 7. So I held it on my way here, Kasaveni, where the meeting from 7 to 9, and this is what we confirmed. We then also agreed and confirmed that school management teams, teachers, learners in hostel facilities, and learners with special education needs waiting for parents to pick them up should report the latest by Friday. So if you have a child perhaps who is somewhere in the Western Cape at a special school, please make arrangements that the latest, if not by Wednesday, the latest Friday, 12:30, there should be no learner in our hostels, in any of our facilities. But preferably, all learners should be out of the school premises by 12. Public schools, because we're closing now a week earlier, we have gazetted, because we have to do it by law, will come back from their winter vacations on the 19th of July.
Of course, Lee, we have learnt from previous lockdowns that dates are made to be changed in this pandemic. And while the 19th of July is set down for the reopening of schools, and hopefully here in Gauteng we'll be through the worst of the peak, we may well see that date altering. Also, another deadline set for later in July is for government schools, primary schools, to go back to full-time 5-day-a-week classes. Currently, most of them are on rotation. Did the minister say anything about that return date and those other specific deadlines?
I did pose that question to her, Sally, in particular that of the traditional timetable returning for primary school learners. And she said, of course, the department is monitoring the situation on a weekly basis, that one thing they won't do is put the lives of educators as well as learners at risk. And if that date needs to be revised, then it will be. But the 19th, of course, is the date that they're hoping for and aiming for learners to be able to return to school, saying that the 19th will also be the date where that traditional timetable for primary school learners will return, but that if it needs to be revised, it will be. Of course, the hope is that teaching and learning can resume as soon as possible, but of course it's all determined, like you said, on the numbers and the surge that we are seeing in a number of our provinces and what's expected to happen in other provinces as well.
All right, well, thank you so much for that update coming to us live from Bloemfontein in the Free State. That's our reporter, Slindelo Masikane.